All right. So I wanted to do this because the way the Penguins are right now, they didn't make the playoffs. They had a horrible GM. They just fired their GM, and people are losing their minds. And I have to laugh. Um, there are people alive, there are Penguin fans alive that don't know what it's like to have a season without Sidney Crosby and Malkin, and
Ain't that the
and
truth?
and in a season where, oh no, we were only a few points out of a playoff spot. This is the end of the world. Oh my
Yeah.
God, what do you mean? What do you mean we're not going to the playoffs? Like, come on, people. Look at when you look at uh just in hockey, how lucky we've been.
Oh my God. Yes. Yes.
No, not just the past 16, 17 years, but basically the past 40 years, starting with Mario, that we
Yeah.
have this amazing team, and that's been good almost every single year.
We're
It's just
very spoiled.
amazing. Yeah, we're so spoiled. And what their playoff streak was, what, 16 years or whatever. Like, look at the
17,
look in
18.
look in any sport. That's so rare.
Right. I have to laugh too, like at the Pirates fans right now. Like I know it's frustrating. The Pirates are frustrating, but I mean we have the Penguins in that streak. We've had the Steelers are good almost every year. The Pirates are really entertaining this year. Like, and they've got cuts and people are interested again. Like we're just spoiled here in Pittsburgh. Very spoiled.
We're very lucky. We're very lucky to
Yeah.
have uh three teams that are that are good or almost good all the time.
Yeah.
A lot of places don't have that.
Exactly. Exactly.
Go to Cleveland. Go to Cleveland. Ask them how it is to make the playoffs. It's a rare thing there.
Yeah, it's not as common as some people want to think it is. Like you said, people that have never known anything different.
Yeah.
I just feel like
Yeah.
saying, "Stop! It's not been that way for all the time."
Yeah. So I just wanted to highlight some of the highlights of the Crosby-Malkin-Letang era. Um, I want to start with Crosby's first year. First of all, them getting Crosby. I still remember exactly where I was when they announced
Me too. Me
that
too.
that they were getting Crosby. It was a
Yeah.
crazy thing because they had just had a strike which wiped out an entire, no wait, was that when that wiped out the entire year? Yeah, they wiped out the entire year so that there was just a special lottery. They just did a lottery to see who would, of
It was
all
a little
every
ball.
team.
I remember the little ball.
I
Yeah.
remember there were little balls, and every team had a chance. And the Penguins had like a slightly higher chance because they basically sucked so much. At that point, all they had was Fleury and Orpik, and I think that's it. So they get Crosby, and it's Crosby's first year, and he was, I mean, he broke all kinds of like rookie records, but still, and you knew he was going to be special. But that was a team that was like Mario's last year, and it was like Mario's buddies. It was not a very good team. And I forget, they were able to draft Malkin, but I don't think they got Malkin yet
He
because
didn't come right away because of issues with like international issues. I do remember
yeah,
that.
he was basically stuck in Russia, and they like kind of
Right.
tried to force him to stay in Russia. It was really, and he had to sneak out.
Yeah, I remember that. And yeah, crazy stuff
Crazy,
when you think about it. Yeah.
crazy stuff. Um, then I don't remember when Letang showed up. I think Letang showed up maybe 2 years later or something
Is
like
it?
that, or a
I
year
thought it
later.
was the next year after Sid. I could be
Maybe,
wrong. I
maybe.
could be wrong. I know.
Yeah. So their first playoff series was in, I believe, 2006, 2007, and
Against Ottawa.
it was against Ottawa, and Ottawa beat
Yeah.
them. That was like that loaded Ottawa team with like Spezza and Alfredson, and
Right.
they had that.
Carlson, which Carlson it was. Yeah.
Yeah, they were really loaded. And then in 2000, and then the next year they went all the way to, that was the year they went against Detroit. That was the
I don't.
year 2000. Yeah, 2007,
That was
2008.
2008. Yeah, that was definitely 2008.
Yeah. That was the year they got Marian Hossa. And
Yes. I was
and
there at that game they lost at the arena. Oh, it was so depressing.
oh, that had to hurt.
Oh, it was awful. It was awful. Just sitting there and it was 3-1 and then it was 3-2 in the third period. And the Penguins were so close. And the goal was like the puck was like crossing the line and going in the blue paint. And you're going, it just needs to go in. Like you just had that feeling if we'd had five
That
more
was
minutes, a
I
minute
think it was
even.
Hossa's shot
Yeah.
or something like that. That
Yeah, exactly.
barely.
It was depressing. Yeah,
Yeah,
it was so
yeah. And to
depressing.
see them win on our
Yeah,
ice.
that was
Oh,
not fun. I
that
was,
was
yeah,
yeah.
not fun.
No,
I
that
I I won't admit how like I really wanted to like throw stuff and boo. I didn't, but there was part of me that was like, I
it's
can't stand it.
hard.
It is. It was
It's
terrible.
hard. It's hard. That was just heartbreaking. I remember Sid was just like on one knee
Yeah,
watching them and like, oh, it's
it
just
was awful.
heartbreaking when they win. I mean, you never see that in like, in football, the championship is played on like a neutral field, so you don't have to worry about the other team winning on your
Right.
turf. I guess it could happen in baseball or basketball or whatever, but just that was just yeah,
It really was.
that just
It
hurt.
was. It did.
And that was still um Michel Therrien.
Yes.
um that was his team, and that was, it's still impressive
Oh,
that
that's
he,
right. Yeah.
to take him to the Stanley Cup final. And then in 2000, the 2008 2009 season, when did they, okay, so that was all the way in February of 2009 that they fired Tarian.
They got Bilesman. Yeah.
They were actually 5 points out of a playoff spot at the time. They get Bilesma, and then they start making a bunch of moves. They trade Ryan Whitney for Chris Kunitz, and
That was a biggie.
they got Bill Guerin from the Islanders,
Another biggie.
another biggie. That team also had Rob Scuderi, Mark
The
Eaton,
piece.
the piece.
The
That was
piece.
so funny. Do you know
I'll
that
never forget that.
God, who is he? The Machine. That comedian. Uh who the heck am I thinking of? Brooke Kreischer. Brooke Kreischer. Same kind of a same thing, because Scuderi was called the piece basically because of like a mess up in translation. Like between some Eastern European or some foreign language thing called him the piece. And so that's and the same thing with Bert Kreischer. He was on this Russian train, and he was talking to Russian gangsters, and he said, hello, nice to meet you, my name is Bert. And somehow that got translated to I am the machine, and I'm like, oh, we love you, you're the machine, cool, hey. So yeah,
I'll
I
look
love
that up.
this. Rob Scuderi was called the piece. Mark Eaton, I barely remember. Was he
Underrated.
yeah, okay, that team also had Sergei Gonchar, who was awesome. Oh my
I loved
goodness.
Gonch. I was so annoyed when he was getting like, fake mock chants and stuff at one point. I thought like, who are you people
Show some
mock cheering
respect.
him?
Show
I
some
mean, he was
respect. He
so
was
good,
awesome.
so good. And
Uh,
that was before they won. And then like, of course, all of a sudden everybody's like, oh, we love Gonch. Well, are you the same idiots that were booing him from the balcony, But
yeah. Um, uh, Ruslan Fedotenko, he
I
was a
loved Fedotenko.
big part of those teams. Craig Adams, I remember he was that
Mhm.
scrappy like fourth liner. Tyler Kennedy,
Tyler Kennedy.
bless his heart, he tried. He was he was, if you needed someone to shoot the puck right into the goalie's chest, Tyler Kennedy was your guy.
Well, that's true, unfortunately, but yeah.
So after Bilesma, and I think, I mean, um Michel Therrien was he was good for what he was, but he was also like really hard on them, and I think they just tuned him out. I think they were just like done with somebody yelling at them all the time.
I mean, it doesn't work with everybody. It doesn't.
It doesn't,
No.
and you got to give him a lot of credit because look at the Edmonton Oilers. They get this generational talent, and they have a talented team, and they really haven't done. They didn't do crap. It's not just you have it so easy because you have Crosby and Malkin and all these players. Like no. You also have to have good coaching and good depth pieces too. So yeah, I give Therrien credit. So, but under Bilesma, they just took off. Kunitz fit perfectly. Billy Guerin fit perfectly, and
There was Mike Rupp. We had a bunch of people that
Mike
year.
Rupp,
There were
yeah.
some like character players, some character guys that really just bought. I fully believe chemistry. I believe that's why Edmonds is not going to win anything anytime soon because chemistry is so huge. I'm sorry, I'm not a McJesus fan. I'm just going to go right there and say it. But that chemistry, it's like when Bilesma came and they got those other miscellaneous pieces to the puzzle, everything clicked. I mean, you felt
Yeah.
it in 1991 when everything clicked. You can just tell. It was such a cool feeling.
91 was also amazing.
Yeah.
They traded Colin, and I think a couple other people for Ronnie Francis and Ulf Samuelsson. And at the time, Colin was like one of the best players in the league.
Zalapsky had a lot of
yeah,
potential at the time.
Zalapsky. Yeah. And he's like, okay, I mean, Ronnie Francis is good, but how's this gonna work? And it worked amazing. It was like
immediately.
Yeah, it worked immediately. Oh, Ulf Samuelsson, Jack Lambert on skates, just destroying people.
Yeah.
He did to people what like Trouba and Tom Wilson do today, but he was on our team, so it was okay. It was okay if he knocked somebody's head off.
Okay.
I know. I hate. I don't know. We have a romanticized version of that, and we probably think that Ulf Samuelson's all of Ulf's hits were clean, but all of Trouba and Wilson's hits are dirty.
Ask Cam Neely about that one. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Cam Neely.
He might have a totally different version.
Ask anybody in Boston. Because Ulf Samuelsson is in like the Ring of Honor thing, and it's like, really, that's who you put him. So funny. They still hate him to this day. I love it. But so in that playoff series, the first playoff series against the Flyers, all I remember was it got the Penguins had a 3-2 lead in the game 6, and the Flyers had a 3-0 lead. And because they had it was actually a 3-1 series lead, and Philadelphia won in Pittsburgh in game 5. And then you go to game 6 in Philadelphia and they have a 3-0 lead. It's like, oh my goodness.
And you thought that's it.
And I've seen that fish before. I remember the 89 playoffs when they chased Ron Hextall.
Right.
And Ron
Robbie
Hextall.
Brown.
Rex Hextall
He went after
Robbie Brown, like it was gonna kill him.
Yeah. I'll never forget that.
And then Kent Reggett in game 7 knocked him out. Oh, I don't remember what I had for lunch today, but I remember I remember the 89 playoffs very well.
I know, me too.
Yeah, whatever happened to that Ron Hextall? So it's 3-0, 3-0 Flyers game 6, and Max Talbot gets into a fight with Daniel Carcillo. And I remember I just saw this again. Who was on the broadcast, the NBC people, and Eddie Olczyk.
Olczyk, yeah, it was Olczyk.
Why were you doing this, dude? Why would the Flyers do this? It's like, yeah, the crowd is into it, and the Flyers are into it, but you just woke up the Penguins, you dummy. And he did. Talbot did. Shh.
I'll never forget that ever.
That was amazing. And then they tied the game, and they ended up, I think they won 5-3 or something like that.
I think that was the score. Yeah, that was
crazy. So they go on to the next round, and now they face the Washington Capitals, who have Alexander Ovechkin. Oh boy, Crosby versus Ovechkin. Here we go. This is the matchup everybody wanted, because as soon as Crosby showed up, it was Crosby versus Ovechkin. Here we go. And I remember in game 2, it was Ovechkin scored a hat trick, but so did Crosby. Now the Penguins lost that game.
Yeah, crazy. Yeah.
But the other thing I remember is that went to 7 games, and I think game 7 was in Washington, and Ovechkin had a breakaway early in that game, and Fleury stopped him.
I'll never forget that one either. I can picture him coming down left wing and skating down the slot, and Fleury was like, "No," and that was it. That was it.
Yeah,
to win out of their sails.
Yeah, and then so they won that series, and then they go on to the Eastern Conference Final against Carolina Hurricanes, and I remember that was a rout, and I remember at that time Malkin like owned that series, and he was on fire that entire playoffs. And
my favorite moment from that series, though, I'll never forget it. And the Penguins, I think we had the game easily, like not easily, but in hand. But Jordan Staal came down and scored a shorthanded goal, and I think it was like the second period, and everybody was crazy anyway. But he came down and scored that shorthanded goal, and you just knew, like, this is different. This is like, we're gonna win. I remember that was the moment I felt like we're really gonna win this year. I can picture that goal like yesterday, and the goal that Malkin had, the one that he just came down and right up.
He was behind the net. He comes by and just does this like flip thing.
It up.
Yeah, it was
I'll never forget that goal.
Amazing. Me too.
That was a great series.
Jordan Staal. God, what a great pickup. Oh God, he was everything they needed. He was that perfect. You already had Crosby, you already had Malkin, and then you had Staal, the third line center, who basically had like the wingspan of a pterodactyl, just this big, tall dude with this huge wingspan.
Did I ever tell you I saw him in Pamela's in Oakland one time?
No way.
I did. I when I was at Pitt, I went in one day, and he was like sitting right there across from me, I guess with his girlfriend. He didn't even fit in the booth. Like, talking about how big he was just big and lanky, and his legs were like sticking out from the
poor guy.
Table. I know. I was like, this kid he's just a monster. He was huge and nice, really nice kid. But I can picture that clearly. Such a big, lanky kid. And he was just a kid, and he did so much for the team.
I'm trying to see how tall he is. 6'4". Yeah.
I mean, I would have even guessed higher. I can just picture him in that booth looking like they crammed him in there.
Poor guy. Poor guy, right? Just wants to eat it. It's like, yeah, especially in those crowded restaurants where they they stick in as many tables and chairs as they can. Exactly.
It looked like they like wedged him into that little table.
Needed the jaws of life to get out of it.
Exactly.
So they take care of Carolina, and now we have the rematch against the Red Wings. Oh, and by the way, who we were talking about a minute ago, Marian Hossa, he decides to go to the Red Wings because he said they have a better chance of winning.
Ugh. Yeah.
Bro.
Talk about like satisfaction. I don't want to hate on a hockey player, but so much satisfaction. So much.
I've never heard of that in sports. I've hardly ever heard of that where someone said, "I'm going to this team because the current team doesn't have a good chance of winning. I'm going to the team that's going to win." Bro, oh, talk about motivation. Oh my goodness. Know.
Well, yeah, he motivated the Penguins with that crap. So.
He sure did. He sure did. But the first 2 games were in Detroit. They win games 1 and 2.
Yeah.
You were at game 1 too.
I was at game 1 and game 7.
How? Wow.
Yeah. I was going to anything, Joey. The minute that hat came up, I was like, getting tickets. I'm getting tickets. I don't care what I have to do. Yeah.
How many in game 1? How many were there? There couldn't have been that many Penguins fans.
There were some. We had a little encampment there. There were
Okay,
some of us. Yeah, it wasn't
interesting.
too bad.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Detroit wins game 1 and game 2. It's like, oh boy, here we go. Maybe Marion Hossa was right. I don't know. But game 3, they win. They win in Pittsburgh. They win 4-2. Game 4, another Jordan Staal shorthanded goal. Because
Yes.
not only was he a great third line center, he was a beast on the penalty kill.
Huge. Yes.
Oh, so good, so good. So now it's tied 2 games to back to Detroit in game 5, and the Red Wings destroy him 5-0.
And what the heck? Don't you remember watching that game thinking, what the heck is going on?
What happened
Like,
here?
where did this come from? Yeah.
What's that Simpsons thing? Chuckles, I'm in danger. So yeah.
That was weird.
So game 6 in Pittsburgh, another huge Jordan Staal goal.
Yeah.
And my all-time favorite, Mike Lang saying, and I'll meet you in the schoolyard, baby, for all the marbles on Friday night in Detroit. I love Mike Lang to death, and that is my favorite thing. I love it. So now here we go. Game 7. So when did you get the tickets for? Because that was, I think, a Wednesday night or something like that. Game 6 and Game 7 was on a Friday.
Well, the minute they won the Kane series, me, my sister, and two of my friends, we were all like trying to get tickets.
Okay.
So we got game 1, and I went with my sister, and then game 7, I went with my 2 friends, and one of them I think got through. But the minute we won that series, it was
okay.
Get tickets. So
at the time, I just started working at this IT place, and I'm still there, by the way. And and it was a career change, because right before that I ran a restaurant. So I'm just starting out. Basically, I'm the low man in the totem pole, and I had to work that Friday night because it was a 24-hour place. So I had to work the 4:30 to 12:30 a.m. shift.
Oh, that's awful.
I was so upset. I'm like, I am the biggest hockey fan here. This stinks. Why do I have to work on game 7 of the Stanley Cup final? This is no fair. It's no fair.
I'm so sorry. Yeah.
So I cried to my boss, and he said, well, too bad, but I'll let you watch the game on we'll let you watch the game on the computer or something like that, because you couldn't really have a TV in there, and you could listen to the game. Well, I couldn't really watch the game because the signal never came in or something like that, but I was able to listen to the game. Game 7, Max Talbot of his cereal box. Max Talbot never should have to pay for a drink in Pittsburgh or a meal or something like that.
Ever.
An absolute legend on the biggest game of the biggest series. He gets 2 goals. And I remember that game also, Crosby got hurt.
Yes, he barely played.
He barely played.
Yeah.
He was, because I think he got hurt either in the first or second period or something like that, and he tried to come back, but he couldn't even put any weight on it. So it's like, okay, we don't have Crosby. And was it 2-1?
Because going into the third period,
Detroit scored. I'm like, oh my god, they just need 1 goal. Oh my god. And those last few minutes.
Oh my god. It was, I sat there, I was with my friends, and we're rocking back and forth. Oh my god. It was like nauseatingly stressful.
We all were.
Yeah.
We all were. We were like, oh, every little thing. Because here we go. We just lost our without our best player, and we got to hold on for dear life. And oh my god. Every second felt like 5 minutes.
Right. Yeah. Every break in the action, you're going, oh, please, just finish the game.
When will it end?
And then
finally at the end, and at the very last minute, Nicholas Lindstrom is about to shoot it, and Fleury does the
I have that picture. Oh my God.
the
Yeah.
Secret Service, I'm gonna save the president's dive.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's it. And they won. And oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. That's now the last Penguins Cup was 1992. So 17 years before that. And they've had some good teams, but they never got close to, the Stanley Cup again. Oh my goodness. That felt so good.
It did.
Um,
It's weird when they won in 92. I mean, you know how weird it was. 92, 93 was such a weird season, with Mario getting cancer and then coming back, and there was so much drama and so much.
Badger Bob, remember that
Yeah,
was
exactly.
Badger
There was
Bob
so
died.
much, right? So much emotional stuff. And I just remember feeling when they lost in 93, it was like a gut punch. And then to think that it was so long before they, like, how much changed and how much was different. Like you said, there were good teams between those two teams,
Yeah.
but it was just such a different, I mean, journey is an overused word, but it was such a different journey in
Yeah.
2009.
Yeah. Yeah. And you say, okay. And I mean, Crosby is what, 22 at the time, 21 maybe.
20, yeah.
Yeah, he would have been well, yeah, he
He
would have
was
been
21.
he was
He was 21.
21, so
Yeah.
it's like, oh my goodness. So
He's a baby.
um he was a baby. And so I'm still at work, and I call my best friend who's also a huge Penguins fan, and he just had they just had a baby. The baby was like a month or two old or something like that. And I call him about to scream, and I just want to talk to someone. And he says, I can't talk right now. The baby's sleeping. I love you. When I was done with work, I went to downtown to see if there was any celebrations going on, but no, there were no celebrations. So,
There weren't. There was nothing going on downtown.
but I think this was like 2 a.m. or something like that.
Oh.
So maybe everybody was asleep. So, yeah. So they won the cup, and then, things kind of didn't go so well because basically that was when Crosby got all his concussions.
Yeah,
Basically, like
2000.
from like 2010 to 2012, he was basically gone.
Yeah, 2009, 2010 was such a weird season. Is that the season? Wait a minute, because I was there at the Winter Classic when he got the really bad concussion. What year was that? Was that
That was
2010?
that might have been 2009 or 2010. I think it was.
Like,
I
I
think it
just
was.
dirty, stupid Washington play. Like, it was. Ugh.
Who is that dude?
Yeah,
Because he's a
I'm
really good
blanking.
he's a really good defenseman now. I think he plays for Tampa, and everybody's like, oh, he's such a good defenseman. It's like he's a cheap shot
Goon.
dude that knocked out Crosby. Screw
Yeah.
him.
Goon.
So yeah, those are kind of lost years. And the Bilesma, Ray Shiro, they lost their luster. They just weren't, they kind of got played out. They weren't as effective, and they get rid of both of them, and they bring in Jim Rutherford, and as a coach, Mike Johnston, who I think was working at a Tim
Odd
Hortons or
choice.
something like that. I
Yeah.
think he was, or a kindergarten teacher or something. He was something. I don't know what the heck. I don't know what credentials he had. But Jim Rutherford, in that 2015 summer, he immediately started wreaking
Maneuvering.
havoc.
Yeah,
He started
maneuvering.
maneuvering. First thing he does, he trades James Neal, who was like a 40 goal scorer, gets rid of him and brings in this Patrick Hornquist. Like, what are you doing, dude? How do you get rid of James Neal?
Clearly knew what he was doing. That was a big move. Huge move.
That was a big move. Oh wow, I didn't realize I have a James Neal bobblehead, but it's of him in Nashville. Yeah, it's like what do you do? Why do you like he was basically their Chris Kunitz. He was, even though Chris Kunitz was still on the team, he was still like, he was a perfect person that they needed. And then
Because and James Neal, just talking about James Neal, like I remember loving James Neal. I have a James Neal jersey of my 9 million jerseys in there. But it's like when Bosma and like when things started to go south with the attitude, I feel like Neil was right in the middle of all that too. It's
mhm,
like he had an attitude. He
he
did.
did.
He had an
He did.
attitude. And thank God that Jim Rutherford knew to dump the attitude and bring Hornquist in.
And we talked about before about chemistry and depth and stuff.
Yes.
The chemistry just wasn't there with him.
No, it
and
wasn't.
and Hornquist was the perfect person for chemistry. And
Yes.
then July 1st, I forget who did that trade, that tweet. It said Kessel to Pittsburgh in a multiplayer deal. We got Phil Kessel. Like,
Feel the thrill.
that was basically Marian Hossa 2.0. Like, how
Yeah.
did we get this guy? And the
Yeah.
poor guy, he was good in Boston, and then he was okay in Toronto, but God forbid anybody. Toronto is just it's a hockey hellscape. I
I
feel
wouldn't want to play there.
I feel bad for anybody that has anything to do with playing in Toronto, just
It's gotta be
because
tough.
they put so much pressure on everybody.
Yeah.
Any
I've got a
player, any
fishbowl.
coach, any
Yeah.
GM, it's like you better deliver. You better we better win every game 20-0, and we better win multiple Stanley Cups, or you're going to hell, and we're gonna
Exactly.
torture you. It's ridiculous.
It is. I agree.
And
It's
they
not
haven't won
cool.
a darn thing since 1967. My goodness. So they get Kessel for basically, it was just actually Kasperi Kapanen was in that deal.
I know it's kind of weird to think about.
Yeah, another player they acquired. This was who was his name? Brett Suter. Brett, I
Something
think,
like that.
remember Suter, who was
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
basically, after Stahl left, he was supposed to be the third line,
Oh,
the answer for third line center.
yeah. 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 Yeah.
Yeah,
Is that the right suitor? I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
or maybe I have the wrong Suter. I don't know. There's
There's
so many
nine
of them.
million of them. I know. There's a
Brandon
lot of
Suter,
them.
maybe, I don't
Yeah.
remember.
I know. I'm
But
blanking too.
anyway, he gets traded to, I believe, Vancouver for Nick Bonino. It's like, okay, interesting. And Benito didn't do crap during the regular season. Well, he
Towards the
for a
end.
lot of toward the end, he
Yeah.
did, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So they have all these pieces. It's like, okay, cool, but everything's bad, 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 bad. Turns out, being a whatever the heck Mike Johnston was, not a good thing, because the guy was sucked. The guy was he was just not the coach. He was not a good coach.
Yeah.
They fire him in December 12th. This is another thing I remember exactly where I was, because my daughter, this was 2015. So my daughter was in 8th grade, I think, and she was in the marching band, and she was playing. She did some recital at school. So I'm sitting here in the stands of this high school gym, and I get this message that says Mike Johnson has been traded, and they brought up Mike Sullivan of the who is a Wilkes-Barre coach. Like, okay, whatever, sure, whatever. And immediately, Mike Sullivan, coach of the Wilkes-Barre Penguins, he brings up half the team. Well, not half the team, but he brings up like 4 key guys: Connor Sheary, Jake Gensel, Brian Rust, and I believe also Kuhnhackl.
That sounds right.
And that infusion of kids changed everything. Also, at that time, they traded the piece. They traded Rob Scuderi, who was not doing so great, toward the end of his career, but they traded him for Trevor Daley. That was huge. They also, in February, they also traded for Justin Schultz, and they fire. They bring in Sullivan on December 12th. December 14th, they trade for Carl Hagelin. Another huge piece.
Needed that speed. That was I loved that trade. I was like, oh, okay, this is happening now. Yeah.
And just because of the kids, because of the new people, because of the coach, it just all takes off. And then Malkin gets hurt. Oh crap, what do we do? Oh no. Well, okay, fine. We'll move up Bonino to the second line, and we'll put him with Hagelin and Kessel. Hagelin, Bonino, Kessel, HBK.
Yeah.
And it takes the world by storm.
Yeah. That was so much fun. That was so cool.
That team was amazing because, at the time you say, okay, we're light and we're fast, but we don't have any size or toughness. So obviously we need to get size and toughness. And Rutherford says, you know what? Actually, no, we're going to get faster. Let's get Hagelin. let's get lighter and faster. And that made all the difference. Great move. They literally, because at that time, every other team was trying to get big and tough.
Right.
And the Penguins, that team basically skated circles
around everybody. They did
around every other team. Nobody knew what to do. Nobody could handle it, especially HBK when they got together. That was just magic. It was absolute magic.
I agree. So much fun to watch.
And then poor Malkin comes back and it's like, we'll try to find a spot for you, but we're not breaking up the hottest freaking line in hockey. That's for sure. So, so they head to the playoffs, and Fleury was the goaltender, and he gets hurt. He gets hurt like toward the end of the season. Like, oh crap, what do we do? We just lost our goaltender. Here comes Matt Murray, this kid, rookie from Wilkes-Barre. And he I think he played like the last 9 games of the regular season or something like that.
Was it that many? I didn't even think it was that many.
I think so. Maybe not. Ooh, maybe not. But maybe he didn't. Maybe he didn't even play that much. It was, but he played at the end. But then he gets hurt. So it's like, Fleury's hurt. Murray's hurt. What do? We got to go to our third string goaltender to start the playoffs, Jeff Zatkoff. We're screwed. We're playing the Rangers. There's no way we're going to win against the Rangers with our third string goalie. And we get Mr. Game 1.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. That was quite a memory.
That was something. That was so cool. Now remember, this is a team that I think of the year before they played the Rangers in the playoffs and got killed in the first round. The Rangers took care of them. So it's like you had every reason to respect and fear the Rangers, and they just wiped them out. Now the funny thing is, Mr. Game 1 was not Mr. Game 2 because Zadkoff got the Rangers won that game, and the clock struck midnight, and Cinderella went back to yeah. But for that one game, he Mr. Game 1. I love that. But yeah, in that Rangers series, really, it was not that tough of a series for the Penguins. I think they won in 5 or 6 or something like that. I think they won in 5. And you could start to see that they were scoring goals like crazy. They were scoring goals at will, and Murray came back and he was on fire also. And oh my goodness. Then we go to the Capitals again in the second round, and it was Bonino. Bonino won game 6 in overtime.
I remember that one.
I remember that. I remember it was, Bonino was on fire. That I don't remember much else about. The series blend together, but what was a series where they were winning 3-0, and then the Capitals came back. I think it was this game. They were winning 3-0. The Capitals came back, and the Penguins kept shooting the puck over the boards and kept like it kept being like a 5-on-3 for like 5 minutes or something like that.
I do remember that. I do remember that.
Yeah, yeah, and the Capitals just, like you couldn't help but you can't help someone score when you have so many penalties at your advantage. And they make it 3-3, but then Bonino wins it in game 6, and I believe that was in Washington also. So, okay, so they win. They beat they beat the Capitals. Now we're on to the Eastern Conference Final against the Lightning, and that was a tough series.
That was a really tough series. I was worried. I remember being worried about that one. But I mean, it ended up fine. And Tampa was in the middle of their, like, they've been so good on and off over the past several years. They seemed unstoppable. Was that the year that I remember being like, oh, wow, like we beat Tampa.
Yeah, that was a really impressive. That was a loaded stacked team. That team was so good also because they had two amazing goaltenders. They had Vasilevsky, and I believe his name is Bishop or something like that. They had like two of the best goalies were on the same team. It was just yeah, it's like, how are we gonna beat this team? And it went all the way to 7 games, and then one of those babies, they call him Sid and the Kids. One of the kids, Brian Rust, scores 2 goals in game 7.
I was at that game too. I remember I said to my sister, if they win, whoever scores the goal, if Brian Rust scores, I'm buying a jersey. And I have a jersey. And I went down immediately after that game and bought a Rust jersey.
Nice.
Yes.
Nice. That was in Pittsburgh, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that was in Pittsburgh. So we're going to the Stanley Cup final for the first time in 7 years. Stanley Cup final against the San Jose Sharks. I remember Mikey and Big Bob, I think it was them. They got a crane and they hung a giant shark from
yeah, they did. I forgot about that. I forgot about the shark.
Yeah, and I don't remember much about that series. I remember Metallica played the national anthem when they were in San
You
Jose.
would remember that. That's awesome.
And because I'm a huge Metallica fan, I'm like, okay, for today, I don't like you guys. Every other day, you're my favorite, but today I'm not crazy about you guys.
Well, that was the series that they could have won in Pittsburgh, game 5, because it was crazy. I was at that game. I was at that game 5, that final series. And if they had won in Pittsburgh, like if they had won, they would have won the series. And it was crazy down there. There were people, I've never seen so many people in the city at one time, people tailgating and everywhere. And then they lost the game and it was so depressing.
I totally forgot about that, but I remember that so well because they were up 3-1 because they won. I think they won the first 2 in Pittsburgh. Then they won. They lost one in San Jose, but then they won to make it.
And you thought they were going to win. Yeah.
You're back in Pittsburgh, and remember, I don't know when the whole let's watch TV outside of
that started in 2008 or 9.
I think so. I agree. I think
because it was in front of the Civic Arena. It was like right.
So we're in late May, early June at this point. The weather is beautiful. Mm-hmm. Everybody thought, "Oh my God, we're winning! We're winning the cup tonight."
Yep.
Everyone came down. Yep. Everyone. It was.
I've never seen so many people.
It was madness. I remember that. Yeah. So crowded. And they lost.
Yeah. And they lost. If I remember correctly, Murray had like kind of a crappy game. And being a huge Fleury fan as I am, I can remember being like, Murray would have lost that game. Like I was so upset that they didn't win that game.
That was weird because in the Tampa series, Murray wasn't playing so well or something like that. So they brought Fleury back for one game, but Fleury didn't do so well. So he went immediately back to Murray. That was so tough for Fleury. Poor guy.
He did so much to get them
he
to the playoffs.
He was the heart and soul of the team, and he was at that point, he was there for 14 years. I think he started in 2003 or something like that. And he basically became the backup to this kid who just shot out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Always guy.
So they lose game 5. They go back to San Jose for game 6. And all I remember is Letang. I don't even remember the score. It was 2-1 or 1-0 or something like that. But Letang scored a huge goal,
I do remember that.
and that was it. And I don't remember. I don't remember where I was. Maybe I was at home or something like that.
No, I was at home.
What made this run so memorable for me was Twitter. Twitter and the whole when you're in a Stanley Cup run, basically you're getting no sleep. The game starts at 7 or 7:30. It goes until 9:30 or 10. You're so wound up. You're not thinking about sleeping for the next 2 hours. And you're doing it every other night. You're just going on no sleep and high adrenaline. And I remember Twitter at the time was so much fun. It was that wonderful shared experience where we're all, watching the game together. And that's what makes Twitter so much fun. And it was awesome. Because I mean, really in 2008, 2009, there was no social media or anything like that. So it was so much fun. Yeah. Yeah. And then they win the cup, and then let's do it again. So in 2017, it was basically the same team. Really nothing changed. Round 1 against Columbus. That was easy. Columbus, we're Columbus's daddy. Round 2 against Washington again.
Yeah.
And it went to game 7 again. But we won. I don't remember who scored. I don't remember.
Yeah,
I
I
don't
don't
remember
remember.
much about that. And then we get to the Eastern Conference Final against the Ottawa Senators.
Which
Huh?
was weird. I remember that being really weird. Like, how'd that happen?
It wasn't that good of a team. They were like a basically like a trapping team that hoped to win every game like 1-0 or something like that.
Yeah, like old school from like the mid '90s style. It was a very strange team
Yeah, it was
to have gone that far.
it was like the New Jersey Devils or something like that. Like
From
just
'96 or something. Yeah, yeah.
boring trap hockey. It sucked, but dang it, they almost won the thing. It took them to game 7,
Yeah.
double overtime.
It was grueling. It was very grueling. Yeah.
Were you at that game?
No, I don't, you know what? I don't think I was, and I don't know why.
We get to double overtime, and we get Chris Kunitz, who at this point is kind of on the end of his career, toward not as great as he was. I mean, he was like the guy in 2008, 2009, and maybe even the year before. But now he's just a depth piece, and he scores this knuckling puck that gets through, and they get to the Stanley Cup final. That is one of my favorite memories of all of these, is that goal.
That's cool.
I think just because of the emotion and because of what it meant, it's like, oh my God, this is the game that clinches us going to the Stanley Cup. It's so cool. So, and then you have the Stanley Cup final against the Nashville Predators,
which was another weird.
I remember they had PK Subban. I remember that was the only other player I remember from that team. And what did he say, that Sid smelled or something like that? Or some
weird comment. Yeah, there was some weird PK Subban comment. Yeah, I do remember that.
Stupid thing. And that game went to 6 games, and game 6 was in Nashville.
Again.
On
the road.
On the road.
In my lifetime, sometime
we're gonna win this thing at home. And I don't know how often they did this, but they had a viewing party in PPG Arena.
I do remember that.
And the thing was almost sold out, because me and my wife went. That arena was almost sold out to watch TV. to watch, but it was fun. It was so much fun. Mikey and Big Bob were basically like hosting a party. It was basically just one big party. It was a lot of fun. I think tickets were only like $10 or something like that. It was really cheap. Uh and yeah, they won it on Hornquist. Just Hornquist, just a lucky, getting it in off the goalie's body, and then they got an empty net goal, and that's it. They
Like
won the
haggling, there's
Stanley Cup.
somebody, they won 2-0. I remember the score was 2-0, but I remember Hornquist, but it was, I don't know. I do remember the game. I watched the game, but I wasn't down there. I should have been down there. That would have been fun.
It was fun. It was
Yeah.
fun. It was fun. Yeah. So second cup, and then the next year they almost did it again. They almost did the three-peat. Got close, but this time Washington got through. And you know what? People trashed Ovechkin and people trashed the Capitals. It's like, oh, he doesn't care about winning and stuff. It's like, no, no, no. It wasn't that he didn't care about winning. It's that he just kept running into those Pittsburgh Penguins teams that stopped him. That's all.
And they didn't hit the Penguins that year, right? They didn't play the Penguins
They
in
did play the Penguins.
2018, did we?
Yeah, they
Did they
did.
play the Penguins in 2018? Why am I
They beat
mixing up
they
the
they
years?
be- they finally beat the Penguins. That's what got them to the
Oh,
conference final. Yeah.
okay. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
mixing up the years.
Yeah, that was not fun. So yeah.
Ovechkin. Remember that commercial with Sidney Crosby and
Ovechkin.
Ovechkin? Yeah,
Um
Ovechkin.
didn't Ovechkin like get him a whole bunch of pizzas or something like
Yeah, or
that? Or
send them weird room service or
and
something.
it's
Yeah.
so funny because both you look at Crosby, Ovechkin back then, they were babies.
Yeah.
They're like 18, 19 years old. They're babies, and there's now you see him now, and oh boy. And there's I mean
That's fun
and
watching him.
and that's not even to mention all the amazing Crosby goals, all the amazing times that Gino went into beast mode and had those amazing goals, and all those times that Fleury did amazing things. I mean, it's been an amazing run.
It
And
has.
I don't know if they're ever going to win a cup again with this group, but I think they'll be better. But we're so lucky.
Yes.
We're so
Absolutely.
lucky. We got 3 cups. Think of all the teams that have won 3 cups in the past 15 years.
Right.
There's not that many, or if any.
No, no. And it's something that, like you said, in so many people's lifetimes, it's just been there. It's always been there. But you go back to before 1991, like the Penguins weren't good. Like there were, other than that 89 heartbreaker team, like, I don't know. People just
I
don't get it.
My first year was watching the Penguins was Mario's first year, and I know you go back to the 70s, and they weren't that good, and heck, they were absolutely horrible in those early 80s. That's how they got Mario.
Yeah. It's funny when we were talking tonight, I was going back in my mind thinking of different games that meant something and were a big deal. And there's individual games that things happened, but it wasn't there wasn't even the possibility in anybody's mind that they could, hey, this might really happen. We might really have a championship team until Mario came along.
When was that? Was it like in the 70s and 80s?
Well, yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, like I was writing down that I remember the first time I ever saw the Capitals play when they were an expansion team. The Penguins beat them 12-1. I'll never forget it. Like I'll never forget it. It was probably 1975, 76, something like that. I'm not sure what year the Capitals started. Like I remember a game in 1972. Was it last year that we had the 5 goals in however many seconds, and it had been since 1972 since
Oh
that had
wow.
happened. I was at that game. Like, but those were standout individual games. Like I remember we had the century line in Pronovo, and I loved Pierre LaRouche, but it still didn't have that
You never
feeling.
thought that like we're winning the cup or anything like that. Like
I
I mean,
mean,
there
you
were times
hope,
where they
but
made the playoffs. I mean, I
right.
remember, it was always it was always the Islanders that would mess them up or something like that when they
Yes.
did make the playoffs. So yeah,
Yeah.
and until Mario, and then even with Mario showed up in '84. They didn't even make the playoffs until 5 years later, and then
Yeah.
even then it
It took
was
until 91. So
it took until getting Yager, and then just getting loaded and getting in 91. Yeah. Gosh, and then they went from not having enough talent to having like basically an
So
all-star
much.
team.
Yeah.
Joey Mullen, who's like one of the greatest players ever, was like on the third line or something like
Yeah. What
that.
does that tell you? Yeah.
Brian
Yeah.
Trottier, he was one of the greatest players. He was just basically a third or fourth line guy. So yeah, it was amazing, but still, they went through hell to get those cups in 91 and 92.
They
That was
did.
that was
They
no
did.
easy task. It is hard as hell to win the championship,
It
people.
is. It is.
Even when you have a really good team, it is hard as hell. So do not take it for granted. We are so lucky, and we've been so lucky. So even if they don't win for another 10 years or something like that, I don't care. We've had amazing memories, and we've had amazing prosperity, and we should just be thankful.
I agree. And hockey being the setup that it is, you have the season and the season is so long and it's such a hard thing. And then you have the second season. Like it's so much fun. I must admit it's been hard for me having the Penguins not in it this year. Like I've been watching snippets here and there of playoff hockey. It is hard, but there's just my point is that it's the season and then you have this whole big second season and it makes it even harder. And like you said, don't
You
take
know,
it for granted.
you look at it in football, and they start the playoffs like in January, and it lasts 3 or 4 weeks or something like that. Uh, you're right. Hockey is
A
two
whole second
months,
season. Yeah.
and when your team is in it and when your team makes a deep run, it's kind of your life. Every other
Oh my
day,
gosh. Yeah.
every other day, you are just all you're thinking about is that team, and like all the times that. Do you remember the parallax thing? Remember against the Capitals when the puck crossed the net, but they said it didn't, and it
Oh
looked
my
like it
God.
clearly
Yes.
did or something. There's
Yes.
so many stories,
Yes.
that happen, and you get to know the other team so well. You get to, and you hate them all. It's
Yeah.
it's such a wonderful thing. It's so
It
you're
is.
so invested. It's just
Good word.
it takes up a lot of your life, and it's a wonderful thing, and when it pays off, it's the best feeling in the world. It's just people get mad. It's like, oh, there's bandwagon fans, they just started watching last week or whatever. It's like, yeah, but it's an emotional investment. If you've been putting so much into it for so long, when you win, you get so much more out of it.
It is an emotional investment. I'm so glad to hear you say that because I get so caught up in it and I think, what is wrong with me that I'm so caught up in it? But it is. It's you get to know the players and you get to know the stories and you get to know every little in and out of this team does this and this one does that. It is an emotional
I
investment.
also
Well
remember
said.
in those early 90s, there was no internet, there was no way of knowing things. They basically the only time we got any extra things other than what was on like the 6 o'clock news or the newspaper was KBL just started up, and you
Yeah,
had
KBL.
Sports Beat. But I remember the game would come on, and that's when you would find out news like, okay, it's the Penguins against the Devils. By the way, Paul Coffey isn't playing tonight. Like, what?
Yeah.
When did this happen? It's like that's when you found out things. So
I
it's
it,
crazy.
it was very different. I went to when the Penguins won in 91, I went out to the airport too. That was another thing I got to do that was really, yeah. When they were winning, like when it was like 6-0, we like called my parents and we're like, can you please watch the kids so we can go to the airport? They came over. But I mean, like you said, there was no celebrating otherwise. It was if you're gonna celebrate with the team, you go out to the airport. It's totally different.
Um, I don't know who there was a concert also at that time at that night
Oh, really?
uh
I don't remember that.
at Star Lake.
Oh, wow.
Um, they said that there were like 30,000-40,000 people at the Pittsburgh airport. That
It
was
was
the old
crazy.
Pittsburgh airport too. That
Right.
wasn't that wasn't the new airport. It was absolutely insane. And I just heard Phil Bork talking about it. He's like, they're flying back from Minnesota, and the pilot says, by the way, when we get back to Pittsburgh, there's about 40,000 people that will be greeting you. And the team's like, yeah, right. What are you talking about? What
You know what?
are you talking about?
We lucked out. We were, everybody was just wandering around, meandering, trying to wait for when they were going to come back. And we just happened to be like, the gate that they came in on was like all the way at the end of the one side of the airport. And they got off the plane and there was like glass windows. And we just happened to be standing on the hillside right outside where the windows were.
Oh,
So we saw
cool.
the Stanley Cup come off the plane. And Larry Murphy, I don't know if you remember this, but Larry Murphy came out and took pictures.
Yes, I
And
remember that. Yeah.
well, I mean, I'm sure you probably can't see us, but like we're right there. We're like, oh yeah. And he was like taking his pictures, and we just
They
lucked out that night.
that year the celebration was at Point State Park. The year after, it was at Three River Stadium.
Yeah, were you there?
I was
there for
there.
that one.
I
Yeah,
was there.
too.
I still have this little banner that I got. Yeah, and that was a lot of fun.
It was.
I have a huge regret that I didn't even think of going to the Stanley Cup parade in 2009 or 2016. But when they won in 2017, it's like, oh, I should go. But it's like I was just so busy with work. I couldn't. I think it was like on a Wednesday or something like that. It's like I can't just I can't fake being sick or something like that. Like I was very busy at work.
Everybody in the city was sick that day.
But it looked like it was a lot of fun being at those Stanley Cup parades, especially I remember in 2016, that was the year that Sullivan came and he brought all the kids. And remember, like Jake Gensel, who looks like he's 12. He's like pounding beers, he's sleeping, and like all those guys just got totally drunk. And
Is that the year I did go in 2017? Is that the year that Oli Mata was totally passed out on that deck? And he was like laying on that deck.
Probably got a bad sunburn because he was just laying.
Somebody's terrace or something. Yeah, I remember that.
Oh, Oli Mata. That was another good guy.
I liked him. Yeah.
Oh man. All right. Well, I'm so glad we did this. As soon as people started whining, complaining about Ron Hextall and we didn't make the playoffs or whatever, it's like we have so many good memories. We have so many good things to talk about. Let's remember the good times. So I'm so glad we got to do this.
Me too. I've been looking forward to it. I'm glad we did too.
All right. Hey, I'll see you.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.